confirmed number of new coronavirus cases reported in Los Angeles County in the last 24 hours is 2,919, with 6 additional deaths. Here in Torrance, 36 additional cases were reported and 1 new death. Welcome to COVID-19 Today. I'm Leslie Robbins. It's Monday, August 9th. Coronavirus infections continue to rise at alarming levels. Over the weekend, more than 4,000 new cases were reported each day in LA County, the highest since early February. County officials will consider taking measures that would require proof of vaccination to enter certain indoor public spaces. Public health officials say the large number of new cases is partly due to increased testing being required by businesses and schools. Speaking of schools, the COVID-19 infection rates among kids have risen nationwide, and children's hospitals are experiencing an increase in medical care needs. The surge comes as medical professionals see an unseasonable spike in respiratory illnesses among children that are typically only seen during the winter. That has led to less bed space in children's hospitals and an increased demand on doctors and nurses. Now, officials say the sharp rise in infections over the past 2 months due to the highly infectious Delta variant should be a warning to all those who are eligible but not vaccinated. They say getting the shot could be the difference between dying, getting seriously ill and hospitalized, versus experiencing mild flu-like symptoms. So far, 6.2 million people over the age of 12 have received at least 1 dose of a COVID vaccine, and nearly 5.5 million are now fully vaccinated. Of the county's overall 10.3 million people, including more than 1 million who are not eligible for the shot, 61% have received at least 1 dose, and 53% are fully vaccinated. Booster shots could be available soon for the immunocompromised. The Food and Drug Administration is expected to review data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the next couple of weeks and possibly amend the emergency use authorizations for people with certain medical conditions to get the extra vaccine dose. Immunocompromised patients make up about 7 million adults in the U.S. They include those who are on cancer treatments, received organ transplants, have had rheumatologic conditions, and HIV. These individuals are more likely to become seriously ill from COVID-19 and might more frequently spread the virus to others. White House Chief Medical Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci said on Sunday that it's likely the elderly, along with the immunocompromised, will need to get the booster shots to better protect themselves, noting that these groups are unlikely to have had a strong immune response to the initial doses. Israel already began giving out booster shots to those 60 and older, and reports are starting to surface across the country of some Americans getting unauthorized booster shots by being dishonest about their vaccine statuses. The World Health Organization called for a COVID-19 booster shot moratorium for wealthier nations that would extend at least until the end of September. Its Director General said residents in lower-income nations are still waiting to receive their first doses, and they cannot and should not accept countries that have already used most of the global vaccine supply to use even more of it, while the world's most vulnerable people remain unprotected. One European country is taking the needs of public health and safety into their own hands by making vaccine documentations required in many of their high-traffic destinations. Calling it a green pass, those in Italy are now required to enter places like the gym, museums, theaters, indoor pools, restaurants, and cafes. To get a certificate, individuals must show they have received at least 1 dose of a coronavirus vaccine approved for use in the European Union, recovered from COVID-19 in the past 6 months, or have negative lab results from a test done within the previous 48 hours. The government announced the rule on July 22nd, and already some 50 million of Italy's 60 million residents have downloaded the certificate. Vaccine certificates issued by the US, Canada, Japan, and Israel will be accepted for tourists arriving from those countries. Speaking of Canada, the country opened its borders today to Americans and U.S. legal permanent residents who are fully vaccinated. But there are some requirements if you're in this group and want to travel north again. Every visitor must also test negative for COVID-19 within 3 days and fill out a detailed application on the ArriveCAN app before crossing. Travelers should also allow additional time for processing at the border. The Canada Border Services Agency representative won't say how many Americans the country is expecting, but notes that they will not compromise the health and safety of Canadians for the sake of border wait times. The U.S.-Canada border has been closed to non-essential travel since March of 2020. The U.S. has said it will extend its closure to all Canadians making non-essential trips until at least August 21st. Torrance firefighters are among the more than 5,000 firefighters battling the largest wildfire currently burning in the country. The Dixie Fire has now become the second biggest wildfire in California history. The blaze has burned about 490,000 acres in the northeastern part of the state, damaging nearly 700 structures. At last check, it was only 21% contained. The Dixie Fire started on July 13th and is burning in 4 counties. In recent days, it destroyed most of the communities of Cannon Dam and Greenville. The Plumas County Sheriff's Office said on Sunday that almost 40% of residents in that county were under evacuation orders. CAL FIRE said 3 firefighters have been injured battling the flames. The cause of the Dixie Fire remains under investigation. The Biden administration announced on Friday that the moratorium on federal student loan payments would be extended to the end of next January. Now, it was supposed to expire on September 30th. The Department of Education said this would be the final extension. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona says the payment pause has been a lifeline, allowing millions of Americans to focus on their families, health, and finances instead of student loans during the national emergency. He added that the final extension will give students and borrowers the time they need to plan for a smooth pathway back to repayment. The federal student loan payment moratorium began in March 2020 when Congress passed the CARES Act that paused payments through September 2020 and kept interest rates at 0% for the roughly 42 million federal borrowers. The Education Department said they would begin reaching out to borrowers in the coming days to let them know about the extension and will provide resources to plan for the payment restart. The Federal Reserve estimated that in the second quarter of 2021, Americans owed more than $1.7 trillion in student loans. Medical professionals are pushing for wider screening for lung cancer, including for non-smokers, due to environmental and genetic conditions. They say regular chest x-rays may not detect cancerous spots because parts of the lungs may be hidden in the heart. A pulmonologist at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center says a low-dose CT screening is the best technique available to detect early-stage lung cancer, but it can also be difficult for patients to get it because they must meet certain criteria set by organizations such as the American Cancer Society or the American Conservation Services Task Force and get approved by the patient's insurer. While smoking is still the leading cause of lung cancer deaths, researchers continue to investigate other causes, such as exposure to radon and diesel emissions. The American Cancer Society currently recommends annual lung cancer screening using low-dose CT scans for healthy patients ages 55 to 74 who have a history of smoking. Authorities at the U.S. Preventative Health Care Expert Committee recommend expanding the annual screening group to adults ages 50 to 80 with a similar smoking background. According to the task force, lung cancer is the second most common cancer in the U.S. and is the leading cause of cancer-related deaths. More than 1.8 million new cancer cases and close to 609,000 cancer deaths are expected in the U.S. this year. An online town hall took place this weekend for those wanting to learn more about a couple of Senate bills under consideration by the state legislature that could affect single-family neighborhoods. The goal of Saturday's Zoom meeting was to help more people to understand Senate Bills 9 and 10. Now, if passed in the Assembly, developers and real estate investors would be able to override local zoning laws to build 6 or 14-unit market rate housing in lots where there are now single-family homes. This could lead to increased density and/or demands on neighborhood parks, power grids, public safety personnel, schools, sewers, and water. The bill was introduced as a solution to help the state meet its target of building 3.5 million new homes by 2025 to meet the state's housing demand. Legislatures and leaders throughout the South Bay are urging lawmakers to allow local jurisdictions to decide how to meet the state's deadline in a way that makes sense for them. They're calling for residents to do their research on both of these Senate bills and take appropriate actions before the state assembly votes on this matter. They are likely to do so when they return from recess on Monday, August 16th. Students interested in attending El Camino College in the fall are invited to an on-campus event. Now, while the fall semester will resume mostly remotely, school officials are hoping this multi-day event on campus will help prospective students complete their registration. The event takes place in just 1 week on August 16th through the 19th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Students can come to the Student Services Building and outside plaza to get in-person help to complete the registration process if needed. El Camino College Superintendent and President Brenda Thames said the event, called Extreme Registration, packs an extraordinary amount of important information and services into each day. And while the pandemic forced the campus to make major adjustments, they now know that all students can equitably access services online, and they do prefer a hands-on student experience. Health and safety precautions will be practiced at the event. Students who are registering for 12 or more units will receive a $250 gift certificate to be used at El Camino College's bookstore, and $100 gift certificates will be given to students who sign up for 6 or more units. Backpacks will also be provided for each student who completes registration, along with a meal voucher redeemable at Cafe Camino. To register, you can go online to elcamino.edu/extreme-reg. Assemblymember Al Miratsuchi secured $5 million in the state budget to build a memorial in the city of Torrance in honor of Japanese Americans. The proposed memorial is intended to teach people about the history of the mass incarceration of more than 120,000 Japanese Americans without due process of law during World War II. It will include the engravement of the names of every individual who was removed or excluded following President Franklin D. Roosevelt's Executive Order 9066 and unjustly incarcerated in concentration camps operated by the U.S. government during the war. Miratsuchi stated that he is pleased to deliver state funding to build this memorial so that we will never forget the lessons of the World War II Japanese American mass incarceration. He added that this has been a dream for many South Bay residents and thanked Torrance Mayor Patrick Fury and the City Council for supporting this project, with a proposed site at Columbia Park in North Torrance. Torrance is home to the largest Japanese American community in the mainland U.S. Well, before we go at the end of each program, we like to share feel-good stories from our community. Pictures, images, and videos that remind us of how resilient our community is and how Torrance truly cares. The Friends of the Torrance Library are accepting donations of gently used books to help raise funds for library programs and services. They're accepting small and large donations at the Katie Geisert Civic Center Library and ask that you call before bringing bigger loads. They also resumed their book sales both in person and online. The Friends of the Torrance Library have been selling used books to the Torrance community for more than 40 years and online for more than 10 years. For more information about this nonprofit, its book sales, and its donation request details, you can call 310-781-7595 or visit friendsofthetorrancelibrary.org. Now, if you have a great story, upcoming event, a photo, or video you'd like to share, email us at covid19today@torranceca.gov. We'd love to hear from you. Well, that is our update for COVID-19 today. We will see you back here tomorrow as Rhiannon Trutanich brings you the latest. Please be safe, stay healthy, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.